dear students, for the section of database concepts and Oracle, we were discussing with the various languages that are present in Dbms environment. I had listed few languages like the data manipulation language, okay, and storage definition language. So these were some of the languages which I had presented. Today it is a continuation with some more discussion of these languages. Okay, with the four different database languages: data definition language, storage definition language, view definition language, data manipulation language. These are the very important one to be discussed and to be known how the languages are implemented by the users at which particular schema, like with the external schema, conceptual schema and internal schema. I have already told you about data definition language and storage definition language. So as a recall, data definition language are something, the very first step that is used by whom the the designers or the program developers. Okay, so when once the DBMS database is being completely designed, and the very next phase is what to implement that particular design. Okay, so the very first step is to specify the conceptual and internal schemas for the database and any mappings between the two. So from conceptual level to which one, the internal schema, there is a mapping. So when catalog is chosen, from the catalog, if any database file is referred by the user, so that file content is stored in the database. So we require a language which is going to be used to interact from the conceptual schema to internal schema. So in many DBMS, where there is no strict separation with which two levels, conceptual level and the which one, internal level, or conceptual schema and internal schema, then the common language, that is data definition language, will be used by the administrators and by the designers to define with schemas both the conceptual schema and internal schema. So you may think that this language becomes an interface to have a communication between which two levels, conceptual level and the internal level. Okay, and I had also discussed about the compiler, right? Data definition compilers will be used, or it is one of the important part where the data definition language has to be processed. So for the processing of these language statements, we require a data definition compiler, language compiler. So where the schema constructs and the way the informations are described in the schema, everything is being identified and processed by which one, the compiler. Okay, then with the storage definition language, it is completely related with which one, the internal schema, that is in the DBMS environment, where they have maintained a separation between which one, conceptual level and internal level. Then at the which one, internal level, storage definition language is used, whereas in the conceptual level, which data definition language will be used. Okay, and we have this language which can be also used to communicate between a conceptual schema and internal schema. So as there is a mapping between two levels, conceptual and internal level, to communicate the things between these two levels, either the storage definition language or the which one, data definition language, can be used to what make use as an interface. Okay, so in today's session, the things we'll be discussing with the view definition language. So the third category, view means what? Suppose if user requires any information to be viewed from the database, particular information, like you have hundreds, numerous of details stored in the database. It could be of course related, it could be of students related, it could be result related. Many such informations you have stored, but not every time you will be going through all these datas. Okay, so according to the situation, according to the task or operation that is performed by the user, they require a particular data to be viewed, right? Yes, so view means at that particular time the user's interest in data to fetch from the database can be done, or the information can be retrieved with the help of which language is this view definition language. So in most relational DBMS today, there is no specific language that performs the role of storage definition language. Instead, the internal schema is specified by a combination of functions, parameters, and specifications related to storage. See, the thing is, very previous to this, we told that at the internal schema or at the internal level, storage definition language is used, right? Yes, but the most of the implementation observed here is, rather than using a particular storage definition language, they are making use of which one? View definition language. So what is that? These permit the DBA staff to control indexing choices and mapping of data to storage. That is, whatever the catalog that is available at the conceptual schema. So when once the information is found in the catalog that yes, it is found in this particular disk or whatever, so the respective disk has to be what? um, Address has to be fetched, okay, loaded to the memory. These things has to be done. So normally to do these mappings from the catalog to which one, the data that is stored in the databases at the internal level, view definition language is used. So what is this language? It is a combination of what? The functions, the parameters. What are functions? Like functions are to perform certain tasks. For example, if you want to simply see the data, view the data, or else if you want to insert the data, if you want to delete the data, if you want to update the data. So here I'm stressing with the terms insert, delete, update. Okay, these are certain functions that you are performing on the database. Parameters. So what is that? When we want to insert a new data, what are the new data you are providing? With the insert function or the command, along with that what information you are passing to the database, that is parameters. Okay, so like that, if you are deleting a record or information, based on what condition, what data you are deleting, like how you are telling which data from which file has to be deleted, right? So those are parameters and specifications related to storage. So storage in the sense like in which particular file, whether it is a student file or any other. Okay, so this particular things has to be what uh, considered in which one, the view definition language. And for a true T3 schema architecture, we would need a third language, the view definition language, to specify user views and their mappings to the conceptual schema. So according to the three schema architecture, we have a external level or external schema where the end users are trying to access the data stored at the low level schema, right? Internal level. So we are not knowing the low level details. End users will not be knowing the low level details. So view definition language is such a language which is required by the end users to view whatever the data they are particular with. For example, if I want to view the course details of which one, the database concepts. Okay, so I need to give the subject name, or if I'm knowing the subject code or course ID, based on that I should fetch the information. So this kind of language, view definition language, is actually required to specify user views and their mappings to the conceptual schema. So with the external level or the end users are trying to communicate with the conceptual level at the middle level, right? So the end users are, or external schema is having a mapping between which one itself and the conceptual schema. So such view definition languages are used as an interface to what interact with the requirements based with the help of the queries. Okay, this is with view definition language. Then Let us now discuss with the data manipulation language. So the very important one, okay, and it parts a very important role. It plays a very important role in database environment. Once the database schemas are compiled and the database is populated with data, users must have some means to manipulate the database. It means uh, when once the designers have described the which one the schema description they have made, when everything design is ready and the table is ready with the which one what fields it is providing, with what type of data to hold in it, what are the restrictions. After all these things, next what initially the database schema, I mean at the conceptual level the schemas are all empty, right? Yes. So later when everything is finalized, tested, then the end users are given to access these schemas, so where they are inputting the information, that is the database is populated with, that is you are filling the information. Users must have some means to manipulate the database. So how to insert the data, how the users are going to fill the data to the student file, database file. We should have certain language with the help of which the user can insert the information. So typical manipulation include retrieval, insertion, deletion and modification of the data. So what are the normal manipulations we do on a database? We actually want to view. Retrieve means what? Whatever the data that are present, if we want to simply view the data, if we simply want to see the information, then retrieval. Okay. Then if you want to add something, then insertion. Then if you want to remove it, deletion. And modification, the change the content or doing some modifications to the database is done with the which one, these kind of operations, okay, and these we refer it as manipulations. So the DBMS provides a set of operations or a language called the data manipulation language for this purposes. So the second point is very important. Whatever the manipulations that has to be done from the end users, either it could be retrieval, insertion, deletion or modification of data, the end users have require certain language to operate on the database content, and that is provided with the help of which language? Data manipulation language. Okay. So now, some conclusion or some comparison with all the four different languages we have discussed till now. Okay, so a typical example of a comprehensive database language is the SQL relational database language, which represents a combination of data definition language, view definition language, and data manipulation language. So, while discussing, you observe that all the four are important at different levels, right? So we have in the database environment, we have a language called as SQL, Structured Query Language. Um, okay, so it is referred as one of the relational database language. So relational, why? Because when there are many database files stored in the domain, there is a relation between one database file to another. Like the student record is having the relation with the result or grade report record. So that is why they are telling SQL, Structured Query Language, Relational Database Language. So what this language is going to represent? It is representing a combination of which languages? Data definition language, view definition language, as well as data manipulation language. So regarding, I mean, as a combination, it has statements. This language, structured query language, is also having the statements for constraint specification to add the constraints to the schema. Schema evolution. Evolution means what? Like already we initially we will be discussing or we will be planning, designing how the schemas has to be structured, described, and all at the conceptual level. At the later stages, like after some period of time, if you want to add something new to that schema, that is what we call as evolution. Okay, schema evolution. The opportunity to enhance the schema description and many other features. So these are all has become a combination of which one? The structured query language. So what about the storage definition language? Okay, we told just now SQL is a combination of DDL, VDL and DML, data definition language, view definition language and data manipulation language. So what about storage definition language? Yes, it was a component in early version of SQL but has been removed from the language to keep it at the conceptual and external levels only. So earlier when the structured query language was introduced, it was also having which other language? Storage definition language, which is used at the internal level. So as the end users are using SQL to interact with the database, they have made that SQL language so convenient. Here is they have here also they have removed the details of undergoing which one, lower level details, or the internal level details have been hidden by this through this structured query language. And that particular the removal of storage definition language in structured query language has made the language to keep at which two levels? Conceptual and external levels only. Okay, so it doesn't bother or try to have the processing part. This language, especially SQL, doesn't have the processing part at which one? The it doesn't keep any details with the which one, low level or the internal schema. Okay, then coming to the discussion of data manipulation languages, here we are having two categories. One is a high level, or we call it as non-procedural data manipulation language, and another one is a low level or the procedural data manipulation language. So remember this, what is a data manipulation language? Which are the two categories in it, may be asked. So high level or non-procedural language, DML language, or data manipulation language, or a low level procedural or procedural DML. These are the two classifications or categories. Remember it. Okay, now let us discuss the first category, that is with a high level or non-procedural data manipulation language. Why the term high level or non-procedural? So it can be used on its own to specify complex database operations concisely. So high level or non-procedural DML category is actually used to which one? So some complex to define certain complex database with any database which are very complex, like the database files or the schema that is defined is large. Okay, so to define that complex database in a more simplest way, we are making use of which one? High level or procedural data manipulation language. So many DBMs allow high level DML statements either to be entered interactively from a display monitor or terminal, or to be embedded in a general purpose programming languages. So now speaking with how this high level data manipulation languages are used, how it is used. So this language, this category of language is normally, language means of course it is made up of certain executable statements, right? Yes, it has to be written with certain statements, how it has to be performing the functions and all. So they would like to say here is, many database managements have allowed this high level data manipulation language statements either to be in the form of a which one, menu, so that with the help of menu the user may interact with the database contents, or terminal to be embedded in a general purpose programming language. So what do you mean by embedding a general purpose programming language? For example, I had told you that nowadays, whichever the web applications we develop, we are using some front end PHP, back end MySQL, that is with the database part to store the data. Similarly, C Sharp backend database we are using to store the data, MySQL and all. So either this high level data manipulation language will be what these statements, these functionality will be what embedded within a graphical user interface, or else this language can also be merged, embedded. It means the this language can be placed inside other programming languages, like as I just now told you all, either it could be in JavaScript, or it could be in embedded in which one the PHP, or in C Sharp. Okay, so like this is what you mean by DML statements, what embedded in a general purpose programming language. For example, if the front end I am using PHP, front end is means what the interact the interface what I'm using to interact with the user. So in the front end I'm asking the details for a person to enter the information. So the front end application, like for example the text box, whatever the radio buttons or the check box what we have placed, the user will be entering the information in the text box. They will be selecting the which one check box, radio buttons and all. Then they will be submitting OK button. Are you all understanding? So this is what the interface we refer in the front end language. So whatever the user has entered the information, on clicking that OK button or submit button, what has to happen? Whatever the information he has fed, that has to be stored in the database, right? Whenever the user click OK button, submit button, finish button, something, the information what we have entered has to be saved at the background, right? That is in the database. Yes, and that is what if the information has to be saved in the database. Front end, you are putting the information, inputting in the text box, selecting the checkbox. So after clicking OK button, that information has to be stored in the back end. What do you mean by that? That is, the PHP language should also have certain SQL statements or the query language statements where the information has to be what? Saved at the background. Another way of defining the high level data manipulation language is like this. That is, it is a set of statements. Deep data manipulation language, high level DML, is a set of statements where these statements can be used to interact with the which one database by with the help of a monitor. Like you are entering certain small statements, that is one way. You are entering some simple statements, and the your request, some simple means like it could be a one sentence or two sentence length of statements. When you are executing it, you will be getting with the information stored in the database. This is one way in the high level DML. Or else they, and language, like for example the structured query language SQL, what I told, with the help of that language, these DML statements like the insertion, the retrieval, insertion, updation, modification, these data manipulation language statements can be what embedded with which language, within one language like structured query language, and can be used as a which one of the programming language to interact with the database. Are you all understanding? So do not get confused. It is a very simple category. High level data manipulation language means what? With the help of these language statements, simple statements, with the help of a monitor, we can simply interact with the database content. Or else, these statements can be embedded within a which type of language? Structured query language. And with the help of this language, we as a like how you use C, C++ or any other language like that. With the help of this SQL language, we can access the DML statements and perform the operations on the which one? The database. Okay, so this is with high level non-procedural DML. In the latter case, that is in the lower level, another second category also we have supposed to discuss, right? Low level or procedural DML. So what about there? These DML statement must be identified within the program so that they can be extracted by a pre-compiler and processed by the Dbms. So what is the meaning here is, when I am using PHP as front end and back end with which one? MySQL or the Oracle to store the what data the user has entered. So these DML statements are embedded within which language? PHP language. So in the PHP, when the PHP language is what processed or executed, the compiler, I mean before execution it has to be compiled, right? So the compiler has to recognize which statements, data manipulation language statements, and that statements has to be processed by which one? The DBMS software. Okay, so these are the two categories. Let us now discuss more about the lower level. The low level or procedural data manipulation language, it must be embedded in a general purpose programming language. As I just now told you, these languages will be embedded, or the inserting the data, deleting the data from the database, updating the data from the database. So the whatever the statements we use to do these perform operations, these statements has to be what? Embedded within which language? High level languages or the general purpose languages like the PHP, C Sharp or any other JavaScript and all. So this type of data manipulation language typically retrieves individual records of objects from the database and processes each separately. So what they mean to say here is, when these languages are inserted or embedded within other languages like PHP or any other C Sharp or JavaScript, when in other languages, when these languages statements are embedded, are included, okay, how the records are accessed? The records are searched one by one individually in order to process the information at the database level. Okay, so therefore it needs to use programming language constructs such as looping to retrieve and process each record from a set of records. So what is the meaning of this here is, suppose assume that you want to insert the information for a student. You want to insert a student record in a student file. So when you are using a data manipulation language statement to insert the record, for example, insert into student whatever the roll number, name, class, major. Okay, insert into student. What are the information? Student number or roll number is equal to 131. Name is equal to Johnny. Then class is equal to 1. Then major is equal to CS. So these are the information you are passing to the which one? Database. Let us assume like that. One more thing, students, like you are observing looping, right? What is the meaning of that? You have already come across the concept of looping in programming, C programming. So when there are series of some list of information, in that list of information, if you want to search any data, you will be using the which one? For loop or any other loop, while, do while and all, right? Yes, for example, to search a number from the list, you have used loops, right? Yes. So if there are some 50 records or some 100 records, student records, okay, if I want to insert certain information in that record, or if I want to get some information from that student record, okay, so these are the operation what I'm going to perform. What is the necessity of using looping here is, for example, one thing, if the student file exists, only then I can insert, right? Yes. So first we should check whether the student file exists. If it is existing, we are then start what we are going to do, we are inserting. So for loop, For I equal to 0, I less than or equal to which one? N is what? The n is a size you have declared, like how much number of records it has to hold. Okay, then I plus plus, this is a thing. Are you all understanding? So with the help of this loop, the control will enter and it is going to enter and we are going to enter which one? The first student record. So let us assume like the loop is continuing and it is accepting all the student records. Let us assume like some 10 records we have entered. Okay, like let the size be some 200. Okay, so after inserting this 10 records, if I want to search any record from the student, so what I'll be doing in the loop, how to search? We require certain condition to match, right? Like either student number or any other name to be matched. Yes, yes. So we will be telling what, like search a particular record from which table or from which file, from student where the roll number is equal to 131 something. So among the 10 records, if it finds with the help of loop, it is checking one by one. You know the searching techniques, right? Binary search, linear search, any searching techniques can be used to search the records. Okay, so like this. So each record will be checked wherever the condition like student number 131 matches, that record will be fetched. Like after undergoing 10 records, after searching 10 records, still if you didn't find the student record, means you should provide a message that what, the student record not found. Are you all understanding? So low level or procedural data manipulation language means these statements, data manipulation language statements, are embedded within other programming languages like PHP, C Sharp, JavaScript, like that. Okay, and in order to access, in order to process these which one, data manipulation language statements, uh, the programming languages may require which one, looping, for in order to retrieve the data or search the data one by one among the set of records. Is that clear? So low level DML are also called as record at a time DML because of this property. So as the informations are searched one by one or one after the other, record by record, or from the set of records the informations are searched, or one by one the records are being inserted, or to view a simple information also we have to search or relate the data from the set of records. This language is this low level DML is also referred as what, record at a time data manipulation language. Okay, so this is with the two categories of which one, data manipulation language. Okay, some additional information with the database languages. Like whenever these data manipulation language commands, whether it is a high level or low level, are embedded in a general purpose programming language. The language is called the host language and the DML is called the data sub language. So what they mean to say here is, from the previous discussion, we understood that low level data manipulation language is being embedded, or those statements are used within other programming languages like PHP, C Sharp, JavaScript, any such things, right? So whichever in the language which is going to hold these or use this data manipulation language, okay, so those languages are referred as what, host language, the languages which are holding these DML. Whereas this DML language statements becomes what, sub language in that. Okay, data sub language, host language and data sub language. On the other hand, a high level DML used in a standalone interactive manner is called a query language. So in the high level, what I told, with the help of a monitor or a terminal, we will be simply typing one query language, structured query language. With one sentence query we will be typing. On executing that single statement, we will be viewing the data from the database. So that is what, that way of using the data manipulation language statements we call it as query language. Okay, so a high level DML used in the standalone interactive manner is called query language. Like For example, if I want to use view a student data, I'm typing uh, select student from student, select from student, that is student is what the database file name, with name is equal to Brown. Okay, I have given the name as what? Brown. So whichever the student name is Brown, that information will be displayed. Okay, so this is what some single statement what I executed, and we call it as what? Standalone interactive manner. So only that much information I wanted, a one statement I typed and I'm executing it, I'll be getting my information. So it is interactive manner. In the low level language, what happens? These simple statements which are used in high level language, like one single DML statements, they are embedded in another language. Are you all understanding? So there it requires a particular compiler, Dbms software to analyze that which one statements. Okay, that is a difference. In general, both retrieval and update commands of a high level DML may be used interactively and hence considered part of the query language. So either the retrieval or updating the information in the database with the help of high level data manipulation language, we can easily interact with the database and easily do the modifications. So that is with the which one? The high level and low level data manipulation language parts. Okay, so remember the terms high level or procedural. Why sorry, non-procedural? Because those DML statements are used as a standalone. It means what? Some single statements we are typing and executing the things and we are getting the data from the database. It's single simple statements. That is why it is non-procedural. Whereas low level is what? You are embedding these statements in another language. So that is why we refer it as a procedural which one? DML statements. Okay. uh, Speaking with reference to the different end users. So casual end users typically use which type of language? High level query language in order to process their request. And whereas programmers, like the persons who are having the knowledge of executing or ability to use the query languages, so programmers, they use the which one? Data manipulation language, which is embedded in its embedded form. It means what? The low level language, which where just now I told those DML statements are embedded in other languages. So any persons who are having the ability with the computer programming languages, those programmers will be making use of which one? Low level DML. They work with that. Whereas casual end users normally go for which one? High level query language, where in a more simple way with some simple statements they can retrieve the information or insert or delete, do the modifications of with the database. Okay, and for naive and parametric users, for these category of users, there usually are user friendly interfaces for interacting with the database. So what do you mean by user friendly interfaces? Like with the menu based, selecting the menu, submenu. With a simple selection, they may get the information. These can also be used by casual users or others who do not want to learn the details of high level query language. So this kind of easiness to interact with the database. These user-friendly interfaces are designed for such users who are not who don't want to learn the computer languages. If they want to simply easily make use of these languages, for them, that is naive and parametric users, the such interfaces are designed. Okay, students, in my next discussion, I'll be discussing with the database interfaces. Okay, have a nice day. Thank you.